Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me. I'm Lizanne, the seasoned spouse, and I wanted to talk today about a very important topic, which is handling stress in military life. And I'll be sharing some personal stories about some ways that we've handled stress during deployments and PCS moves. But I also wanted to hear from you. So if you want to chime in at any time in the comments, you can share ways that you have been stressed in military life, and maybe we can talk you through some of them. Or you can share a helpful tip and a success story that you've used when you were handling stress. So I'm excited to be talking to you about this today because I think it's something that goes overlooked a lot. We see a lot of military spouses that are told to put on a brave front and say, everything's fine, I'm good, we got this. And sometimes that's true. Military spouses are incredibly strong and resilient and flexible people. But you know what? We also handle quite a bit of stress in everyday life. And it's okay to admit when it becomes overwhelming and serious and a little bit more than we're fine, we've got this, we're going to be okay. So today we're going to talk about stress, and I'm going to be giving away a free VIP ticket to a very cool event called the Military Spouse Wellness Summit. And the summit is completely online. You don't travel anywhere or go anywhere to attend. It is an online retreat offered in March. And with the VIP ticket, they will send you interviews and conversations every day to your email. And the VIP ticket allows you to download those anytime and watch them or listen to them anytime. And then it also gives you exclusive access to the Military Wellness Summit Facebook group, which will have tons of exercise tips and recipe demos and lots of great conversation about overall wellness, health, taking care of ourselves, self-care, all those important topics that are super important at any time in military life, but especially during a deployment or PCS move. So today I have one free VIP ticket to give away. And the general tickets for the Military Spouse Wellness Summit are free, but with those you only receive the interviews, and I think you can only listen to them that day, and then the link would go away. Whereas the VIP ticket allows you to download it and listen to it anytime. So it gives you a lot more flexibility because it's 10 different interviews, and that's quite a bit to listen to in 1 week. So I'm attaching in the comments here, there will be a link to the ticket giveaway. There you go. And so as we're talking, I encourage you to check that out and sign yourself up for a free VIP ticket to the Military Spouse Wellness Summit, because that is one great way to handle stress in military life. So while you're checking that out, I wanted to talk to you about some of the times that military life stress has been a little overwhelming for me and some of the ways that I've handled it. And one big secret that I will share with you that has allowed me to kind of get through some of those seemingly impossible, stressful moments in military life. So as many of you know, I've been through a lot with my military husband. We've been married for 10 years and we dated for 7 years before that. So he's had a rather long military career with lots of ups and downs, lots of deployments. And some of those deployments have been a lot more stressful than others. There's a few that have been non-combat, and so in those situations I'm not as worried about him, and usually there's a little bit more regular communication, either email or video calls. So those aren't terrible, and we've weathered them just fine. But some of his earlier deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan were particularly stressful. And one in particular was when I was having our third child. So we had 3 kids in 3 years. And of course, baby number 3 was born during a deployment because military life, that's the way it goes. And so in the months and the year leading up to the deployment, I was already stressed and worried because as soon as I found out I was pregnant, we knew that the baby would be born during the deployment. And there was absolutely nothing that could be done about that. The deployment dates weren't going to change and the due date wasn't going to change. So I had to kind of adjust and get used to it. And it took me months of that pregnancy to really accept that and be okay with that situation and plan for it and everything. And so he deployed and I still had a month-ish left of the pregnancy. And then just when I thought I had things kind of set, I knew who was going to be my friend to come with me to the hospital and hold my hand. I had my mom coming in town to watch the younger kids. As soon as I had that all arranged, then a Category 4 hurricane was announced for our town, and we lived in coastal Carolina, North Carolina, and this was Hurricane Isabel in 2011, and Hurricane Isabel hit the town the same day as I was due to deliver our baby. So I ended up delivering the baby in the hospital. I did get to the hospital on time, luckily, but it was a crazy situation. The hospital lost power, not on the birthing floor. Luckily, they had generators to handle that. So the birth was okay, but the recovery floors had no power. And so my first night in the hospital with the newborn, I was there with a flashlight, and then there was a tornado warning. So they got everyone up out of the beds and brought us out into the hallway to sit in the hallway in case the tornado would break all the windows in the hospital. So my very first night with the newborn, I was just sitting there in a hospital hallway alone. There were a few other couples there that were unlucky enough to deliver that night, and everyone else had a spouse or at least their mom or someone with them, and I had no one, and it was the most alone I had ever felt. And then the next day, even though I was released from the hospital care because I had a fairly natural delivery, the hospital wasn't allowed to check us out because the base was still shut down and trees were down everywhere and roads were closed and it was impossible to leave. So I was checked out, but I couldn't go. It's like the Hotel California song, you can check out, but you can never leave. So I was just hanging out at the Naval Hospital, but once you're checked out, they don't feed you anymore. So there was no food. I had like a granola bar and this newborn who was crying and needing to be fed. And I ended up walking out of the hospital to a food truck to go get some food. And it was just a very crazy, stressful situation. And I thought that once we got home and once we got back on our routine, everything would be okay. We just had to get past the storm, and it was only a few days, and then it passed, and thankfully our house wasn't damaged, so I eventually could go back home. But unfortunately, even though the hurricane passed, the rest of the storm of stress and deployment and military life did not go away. And dealing with a combat deployment and a newborn baby, plus a toddler, plus a preschooler all at once was an incredibly stressful situation. And it was probably one of the hardest times in my life, probably one of the most challenging times we've been through. At that time, my husband was not able to contact us regularly. So he would call maybe once a month, and it was completely unpredictable. You had no idea whether it would be during the day or at night. It was just sort of whenever he had walked a few miles to get to a phone. So there was that constant stress of keeping my phone near me and, would I be able to hear the ringer? And what if I'm in the shower and he calls? Would I be able to get to it in time? I mean, you don't think that that's a very big deal until you live with that stress every single moment for months at a time, on top of a newborn and a toddler and a preschooler and not sleeping well. So it was not a very healthy time. I'm very lucky that my sister and my mom both took some time. They tag teamed to come and visit me and stay with me for a few weeks, or even my sister stayed a few months at a time, because I really would not have been able to handle all that on my own. And so thankfully they did help me take care of the other kids and get me through that challenging time. But otherwise it would have been extremely challenging. I knew I was already struggling a little bit with postpartum depression. And so dealing with deployment and everything else on top of that was very difficult. So when I talk to you about the stress of military life, I understand. I know where you're coming from, and I've been through similar situations. And I'm here to admit that stress is an extremely challenging and extremely exhausting and debilitating thing that can really overwhelm you if you're not careful. Sometimes it creeps up on you slowly during a deployment where things seem like they're going okay, you got this, it's okay. And then just one little thing after another kind of makes it feel like an unbearable weight until you just crash and you can't handle it anymore. And you couldn't name, one exact huge thing that made it impossible. It was just 100 small things. Sometimes stress is like that. And then other times it is an enormous situation, like a hurricane that just completely uproots your plans and is a frantic scramble of activity that you weren't anticipating. So stress can come at us in lots of ways in military life, and everyone handles it a little bit differently. There's no one magical way to deal with stress. But there are some suggestions that universally can work for most people. So one thing that's frequently recommended is self-care. And I know when I was a mom to newborns and toddlers and multiple kids, when people would talk about, oh, you need to take care of yourself, go take a spa day, I just felt like that was completely impossible. I didn't have childcare. I didn't have money to go to the spa. And it just seemed completely unrealistic. So when people were like, oh, pamper yourself, treat yourself, I was like, how? With what? So I learned that self-care doesn't have to mean a spa day or, hours of luxury away from your kids, or even a long, luxurious bath. I mean, self-care can take place in so many different ways. And all it is taking a few moments to slow down, to refresh yourself, to rejuvenate yourself, to do something that makes you calm and relaxed. And so for some people, yeah, that might be going to the spa or getting a pedicure. For some people, that might be just having dessert when they don't usually eat ice cream or chocolate. It could be a long, luxurious bath. It could be walking your dog. It can be taking a few minutes to journal or do something creative. Coloring books can be very therapeutic. There's adult coloring books that are just very relaxing when you can kind of plan out your own color scheme and your own page. So there's tons of ways. Even a busy mom, even someone with multiple children can take a few minutes here and there to take care of yourself and to kind of refresh your spirit, give yourself a little mental break, and find the energy and the calm that you need to continue. And so one way that we can do that I was recommending today is this Military Spouse Wellness Summit. So like I mentioned before, I have one free VIP ticket, and there's a link in the comments for how you can enter that giveaway. But the Military Spouse Wellness Summit is all about taking that time to just refresh and rejuvenate. And it has 10 podcast style interviews, which will be sent to your email during that week. And each interview is a different expert or military spouse or mental health professional, someone who has some real practical, actionable advice for military life and handling stress. And I'm excited to attend because it'll be during a deployment for us and during a time when I know that I will be fairly stressed and exhausted and just need that extra support and encouragement to kind of get to the end. So whether you are at the beginning of a deployment or the middle or the end, or whether you have a PCS move coming up next year, or having a baby, or just anything that's a big stress and a big change in your life, then I really recommend the Military Spouse Wellness Summit. And I hope that I can give you the free VIP ticket. So that giveaway will go until Friday, February 2nd. I believe, second or third. And then I'll do a drawing on Saturday to announce who has won. So that's one big way, one step that you can take today to plan for handling stress and taking care of yourself in military life. And I mentioned some of the other little daily things that we can do. Hopefully before you're too stressed out, you can come up with routines of, taking that time to read, to pray, to meditate, even to exercise. Going to the gym can be, depending how you do it. For some people, it's, a huge mental hurdle and it's a physical exhaustion. But there's also something very therapeutic about improving yourself and reaching goals and milestones. And when you work out, you do release all those endorphins that make you feel like, this is great, I'm so strong, I can handle anything. So getting those chemicals into your body can actually make a difference when you're handling stress and dealing with difficult situations. So any type of refreshing routine, whether it's a workout routine or a prayer routine or a reading routine, those can all be forms of self-care. But the secret tip that I wanted to share with you is one that I use during the very stressful moments, the overwhelming times in military life. And I've had a lot of people tell me that as a mom of 4, they're always amazed how calm I can be and how patient I can be. And I guarantee you that is not every single moment of the day. I definitely have my freak out moments and I yell at my kids more than I would like to. But I do overall try and stay fairly calm and reserved and in control. And the one way that I've been able to do that is by focusing not on the things that I can't control, but by focusing on at least one thing that I can control. Okay, so in those moments of extreme stress in your life, when the military is just crazy and they won't give you a date and they won't give you the paperwork and you don't know where you're going and you don't know what's happening, there's nothing you can do about that. As a military spouse, I mean, as long as you've turned in your paperwork and done what you can to meet the requirements and meet the deadlines, there is so much time that we spend just sitting back waiting. Okay, tell me where we're going to live next year. I'd love to know. Tell me when deployment's going to end. That would be really great to find out. And we can't control that. There's nothing I can do to make that speed along or go faster or give me the answer that I want. So dwelling on it and worrying about it is not helpful and it's exhausting. So I've learned as much as possible to let go of those things that you can't control. And when your life feels like it's going crazy and things are just spinning really quickly, find one little thing that you can control and hold on to that. So during that deployment that I talked about earlier, when there was the hurricane and I had the baby and the toddler and the preschooler, there was a lot that I could not control. Okay, I could not control my husband's deployment. I could not control when he would contact us. I could not control when the baby was going to sleep or eat or cry. Okay, none of that was something that I could actually be in charge of. And in those situations, I had to just kind of sit back and roll with it and go with it and do the best that I could. But I would find one thing I could control. So, for example, at first, the only thing I could control was myself and whether or not I wrote to my husband. And I found that if I sat down for just a couple minutes every night and wrote a letter to him, that was so therapeutic to me. And then it was also reassuring and connecting to him. So I wouldn't write, anything elaborate or fancy. It would be like, it was another tough day. The baby cried a lot. I'm really tired. Miss you. He got a lot of letters that were like that. But that was my ritual. That was my evening routine. And so even if the baby was still awake and I was kind of, nursing the baby and burping the baby and walking with the baby, I'd be kind of like doing the one-handed walking with the baby and then jot down a couple sentences to him. And being able to control that moment in my life meant so much to me on a bigger scale because it was something that I could do regularly that I was in charge of. And then every few days I could gather those letters together and send them off to him. And it felt like I was taking control of just one tiny piece of my life. And then as the baby got a little bit older and I finally came out of that new mom haze that I was in, I found other little things that I could control. So once the baby was old enough to be sleeping in his crib instead of right next to me in the bassinet, I had the master bedroom to myself. And I decided that was going to be my space in the house that I could control, that I could take care of. The rest of the house with 3 little kids was a mess. There was diapers and there was toys and there was dirty clothes and stuff. But my bedroom was a place that I could control. I could keep it neat. I could keep it clean. I kept, clothes off the bed and tried to keep things put away so that when I came into that space, it didn't matter what was happening out in the rest of the house and how many dishes had to be done. What mattered was that I had a peaceful place that I could go to relax and just sort of look around and not feel overwhelmed. Bethany's joining in. She says, my daughter's having a hard time since my husband's been gone and it's only been a week. Oh, Bethany, I know. I have had 8 kids at different ages for multiple deployments, and that toddler stage, I don't know your daughter's exact age, but I feel like age 2, 3, and 4 is one of the roughest times to be going through a deployment, because not only are you aching and you're missing your husband, and I know that pain, but your children are missing him too, and they can't vocalize and they can't control anything. Okay, so now she was 6 months old. Oh, last deployment she was 6 months old. Now she's 6 years old. Okay, so that, gosh, I've had some really tough times with those ages. So the good news is for a 6-year-old that they are able to vocalize a little bit. They can't always explain all of their emotions, but they can explain some of them. And so sometimes with a kid that age, it is helpful to say, it feels like you're missing daddy a lot today. I know you're missing daddy. I miss him too. And being honest and open with those emotions that you share, as long as you can kind of keep yourself not crying and under control a little bit, it can open up that dialogue with her to let her know that it's okay to express sadness and anger and frustration and loneliness, that she can express all that to you because you're going to be there for her and you're going to listen. Becky's joining in too, that she has a 2, 4, and a 5-year-old. Oh boy, yeah, I've been there too. It's good times. So your first deployment's coming up, Becky. You know what? It's going to be okay. There are definitely going to be tough times, but yeah, Bethany, if you can keep that dialogue open with her, and then we do try and keep pictures of daddy around the house. We have, lots of pictures. We have a daddy quilt that the kids can keep on their bed. Those are free, actually, from the ASYMCA. I might add a link to that later. The custom quilts have pictures of dad printed on the fabric, and the kids can look at those. And then we have daddy dolls, and we have, photo books and things, so that he's kind of present throughout the day. And if they want to talk about him and how they're missing him, they can, but it's also not something that we necessarily bring up in every situation and all throughout the day, because there's some days where we're okay. And we don't need to be saying, hey, this is a nice dinner. I wish daddy were here. So sometimes we have to just kind of watch our kids' emotions and see how they're handling things. And I will say that there's a few resources we've used on base for my kids. Depending what branch you are, if you go to your family center on base, there should be some classes and family programs for kids with deployments, kids handling deployments, something like that. There's a program called FOCUS, FOCUS, which of course stands for something, Families Overcoming Unusual Stress, I think it's called. See, the FOCUS program is very useful for families with kids probably around age 6 and up. They have to be able to talk and able to draw and able to vocalize things. But FOCUS allows families to talk about ways that they're handling stress and times that have been stressful in the past, as well as times that are currently stressful. And they meet individually with the parents, and then they also meet individually with the kid over a series of weeks. And they just kind of give you some tools for conversing, and it has been really helpful in our family, especially with my child that was 7 during the last deployment. They talk about being in a green zone of everything's okay and I'm normal, and then yellow, orange, and red are the progressively stressful zones. And there were days where I had to tell my daughter, you know what, you're kind of getting into the orange zone. Okay, what can we do to help you take a step back, to relax? What are your green zone exercises? And I know that sounds a little corny, but honestly, it was super helpful for helping kids handle the stress of deployment, because we learned that with her, she was sad and she was missing dad, which I expected, but the way that it manifested was not what I expected. It manifested as anger and attacking me and a lot of sarcasm and a lot of slamming doors and things like that. So it took a little while before I connected her anger with her sadness. And once I put all those dots together, then it made a lot more sense, and the way that I could respond was a lot more helpful. But at first I thought she was just, being a bad kid and breaking our household rules and acting out. And I knew it was deployment related, but I couldn't get her to admit that or talk about the fact that she was missing dad. Bethany says she's very talkative. She's had lots of spouse training, but I don't know how to handle her lashing out. Yes, that sounds a lot like my daughter. And so we did use the focus program. And the other resource that we used, which is free, is an MFLAG, Military Family Life Counselor, MFLC. There's an MFLAG embedded with most military units, and that is a professional, either healthcare provider or social worker or psychiatrist. I think it can be any of those fields. And there should be an MFLAG in your unit available to the families. This is not specifically for the active duty troops. This is a family resource connected to the service member's unit. And so during a deployment, families are allowed to reach out to the MFLAG, and that person can meet with you on base or off base. And they can't do any medication or professional healthcare advice, but they can give you a lot of steps to get you started if you think that your family might want counseling, or that, like Bethany was saying, when your child is acting out a lot and you're not quite sure how to handle it or where to go from there, whether it's an actual mental disorder. I mean, because we were looking at pediatric diagnoses for my daughter of, is she bipolar? Is she OD or OOD? I mean, we were going through a lot of steps to try and see if there was something wrong with her brain, or if there was just something wrong with her life with the deployment. And so the MFLAG was a really useful resource to kind of help us sort through that and know who to talk to at her school, who to talk to at the pediatrician, and all of that. So Becky's asking about Guardsman Families. Okay, so that is a little trickier, because I know National Guard it can be very isolating when you're not near a military base and you have access to military resources. You're entitled to use military resources, but they might not be around you. So I think the focus program, you can find them online, and I don't know if you'd be able to carry through with some of the sessions online, but that's something you could look into. Yeah, I understand feeling really distant. I know that's got to be so hard, feeling disconnected from a base and from other military families, and feeling like you're just kind of on your own, the only Guardsman family in your town. So I think the focus program you can at least find online, and if there's an MFLAG, I don't know if they're with Guardsman units. I know for sure they're with regular active duty units, but I'm not sure if that's a Guard resource. Another resource that Guardsman families can use would be Military One Source. The website is just militaryonesource.com, and they offer free counseling for a variety of activities. You don't even need a medical referral. You don't need to go to a pediatrician first. You don't need to go to a healthcare provider for yourself first. You can just go onto Military One Source, request a counselor for a variety of situations. And then military families are entitled to 12 counseling sessions per year for free. So it's an incredible resource, especially if you have kind of an ongoing situation like a deployment or, trouble with a child handling stress. So I would encourage you to check that out. And find some counseling support either for yourself or for your child, or they might do mutual sessions. And the great thing about Military One Source is a lot of their counselors will do either phone or video sessions. So you don't need to drive to an office and find a counselor that's near you. You can just call in and video in anyone who is accepting that. So Military One Source will help you connect with the counselor and set you up with 12 free sessions with that, which I strongly recommend. So great. I'm glad that you'll be able to look into that. So I'm really glad to see this dialogue and people sharing about the stressful moments of military life and some of the ways that we can handle that stress and support each other during that stress. And so, as I had mentioned before, another online resource is that Military Spouse Wellness Summit. That's why I'm giving away a free VIP ticket, because I think that we just need to connect with other military families, other military spouses sometimes, and hear other people saying, you know what, I've been there. It's really tough. Deployment is not an easy situation, and especially deployment with kids is really challenging. So hearing these interviews and hearing these conversations through the Military Spouse Wellness Summit can be so rewarding and relaxing and refreshing. Even if you're not participating at the exact moment, or you're not sure, which stressful moments you have coming up, it's just great to be prepared and kind of know what to expect. So I do recommend that, and that's why I have a giveaway in the comments for one free VIP ticket. But the other big tip that I was sharing about handling military life stress is that when you feel that everything in military life is going crazy and out of control, to try and find one thing, one aspect of your life that you can control. And that has really helped me a lot during deployments. So depending what stage you are, I mean, when you have a newborn, there is not a lot that you can control. And I get that. And I'm not trying to overwhelm you with, here's one more thing that you need to add to your plate. But when you find that tiny aspect of your life that, a ritual that you can do every day, whether that's prayer or reading, or like I said, I was writing letters each evening, that can be a really great thing. In other deployments, something that I would be able to control was, I learned I could control my eating. After having a baby, of course, I wanted to lose some baby weight, and just following routines, following a diet plan. I did use Weight Watchers quite a bit, and now I just sort of use the Fitbit app. But anything that helped me kind of get my food and my eating under control. I've learned a little bit about meal planning. I've learned about balancing macronutrients throughout the day. So when you take control of that one part of your life, even if I didn't know when my husband was coming back, and even if I didn't know, when the baby was ever going to sleep through the night, at least I'd feel like dinner was under control. And, that tiny piece of success gave me the confidence and gave me the calm to kind of face the rest of the day. So sometimes it was food that I would try to control. Sometimes it was my workout routine. So one thing that I did that surprised me was during that that fifth deployment, after the third baby had been born, I signed up to do a 5K race, which I'm sure there's some of you out there that have run a 5K like regularly, and that's no big deal for you. For me at that time, having just had a baby, that was a huge deal. I was not a runner, and I had never been interested in running, and really didn't plan to do a 5K during that deployment, but it ended up being to support actually the spouse of a fallen Marine. So of course it was a really good cause, and that was going to drag me out to do some fitness. So I signed up for that Couch to 5K running program, and I was like, what am I doing? I've never run 5K before. I'm not going to have time to train for this. This is crazy. But it had a training schedule, and the first week of the schedule said something like, it was like walk for 2 minutes and then jog for a minute and then walk for 2 minutes. I was like, okay, I can do that. I mean, anyone can do that, right? So just being able to follow that plan, doing first, it was maybe 10 minutes of exercise per day. And then, they gradually worked you up, and it was a training plan that takes at least a month, maybe it was 6 weeks or something. So gradually adding on a few minutes each day, it never felt overwhelming. And I felt more and more confident, and I felt, well, in better shape, obviously, the longer that I went on. And so I ended up running that 5K race, and I ran better than I had expected. And I've done multiple 5Ks since then. And I even got really crazy once before baby number 4 was born, and I did a sprint triathlon, which is not a full triathlon. I've never done a marathon or anything, but you do a swim and a bike and a run. And the running portion is a 5K. The biking portion is like 20K. And I forget how far the swim was, but it took a couple hours. And so within a few years, I went from couch to 5K to a sprint triathlon, not because I'm a crazy fitness person, just because I needed goals, and I needed some part of my life that I could plan for and that I could control. So I could control a running and a training routine, especially if it was only 10 minutes a day or something. That wasn't a big deal. And that was a lot easier to deal with than controlling my husband's phone calls, because I had no control over that. So thank you, Bethany. It was a cool accomplishment. So sometimes when you just find that one piece of your life that you can have a tiny bit of control over, that gives you confidence, and I don't know, it gives you strength in so many different areas of your life. So you might not think that sitting down and reading a book for 10 minutes every night is going to be life-changing. But if that's what gives you calm and peace and relaxation at the end of the day, and then you allow that to get you a better night's sleep, and then that allows you to be more active the next day, then yeah, you can change your life in these tiny little ways. So I've talked before about setting goals during deployment, and sometimes I've started out with really huge goals, and then other times I've just been trying to keep the kids alive, and it's okay, whichever stage you're at. There's going to be different levels of stress. You just need to find the ways that you can handle that, and the little pieces that make it manageable. So a lot of people, Brianna, you're not alone. A lot of people want to start eating better and working out more during deployment. And so I challenge you to just take a bite-sized piece of that, okay? Don't set any crazy goals like, I'm going to lose 50 pounds this deployment. But find a very specific, structured way that you can break your goals down into little pieces that you can control, okay? Maybe it's 5 minutes a day. Maybe it's 10 minutes a day. But whatever that part of your life is that you have ownership of, and that you are taking credit for, and that you're doing on your own, that's going to give you so much confidence to take bigger steps in the rest of your life. So like I said, yeah, everyone wants to get in better shape during deployment. It's the thing that we do, right? So be specific about, are you going to plan meals, or are you following a reduced calorie diet, or are you going to do clean eating? What specifically are you going to change? And then look at your fitness routine too. Are you trying to run more? Are you trying to be stronger and lift more? Because those are different goals. And if you just say, I want to go to the gym, well, like, you could go to the gym and sit on the floor, and that's not going to do anything for you. So you need to have a specific goal. I want to run 20 minutes so many days a week, or I want to be able to run an hour at a time by the end of deployment, or something like that. Brianna says that you want to shop healthier and plan on meal prepping. That's great. Those are really good. So if you guys want to share for a moment, one thing that you've done that helps you to handle the stress of military life, or to deal with those crazy stressful moments like deployments and PCS moves, I think we'd all benefit from hearing different ways that other people have handled stressful situations that are similar to ones that we've been in. So I already shared that when we were in our most stressful deployment, when it was a combat deployment, and I had a third baby within 3 years, and I felt really alone and isolated during that deployment, the things that got me through were finding these little parts of my life that I could control. And one at a time, I took control of, writing at night, and then eating healthier, and then exercising. And together, by the end of deployment, they had made me a much stronger person, a much better person. And they'd gotten me through this crazy, stressful time that when I look back, I really am not sure how that worked. I don't know how I did that. It was exhausting, and it was just a huge blur. But I think focusing on these tiny goals and these things that I could do, that's what got me through. So Elizabeth is sharing, oh gosh, that stress is like having ovarian cancer and dealing with the wonderful aftermath of the damage it's done to your body. Yeah, that is a good time to breathe. You are right. I'm so sorry to hear that. But yeah, when you're recovering and when you're trying to find your way again after a traumatic situation or an extremely painful and difficult illness, you have to find those ways that you can take your life back. And you can't let Elizabeth, she didn't let the cancer beat her, okay? So you need to find ways that you're not going to let deployment beat you. You're not going to let your teenager acting out beat you, okay? You're going to find these ways that you can take ownership and you can take control of little parts of your life. And when you control the little parts, it's going to add up to making you more confident, more calm in these enormously frustrating and stressful situations. Bethany says, when I'm new at base and stressed out, I force myself to go to a spouse club. I've met some I've loved and some I didn't care for, but it forced me to get out and meet friends. And we took over the Airmen's Attic at Lackland, and we're helping military members and families. It was a blessing. And she met some great people. My goal here at our new base is to volunteer. That is awesome, Bethany. I always recommend that people get out and at least try the spouse club at a new unit or a new base. I know that there are some horror stories out there and that not every spouse club is created equally. I get that. I've had a few bad experiences myself, but you're never going to be able to have those bad experiences or the good experiences if you never even give it a chance. So I always say, go to at least 1 or 2 unit events and spouse events. And if the first one's a flop, okay, I'm sorry, but don't write off the entire base and the entire spouse club just because of that. Maybe it was just one mean person. So find a friend and try again. And, go back the next time with somebody with you so that you can say, was that person just being ridiculously rude, or is that just me, But I've also had some really wonderful experiences with our family groups and connected with people that have become incredibly close friends. And that's what helps you to feel like you're at home when you arrive at a new duty station. So you have to make those connections, because without friends, without people around you, you really cannot handle the incredible stresses of military life. Becky says, my husband's in a combat deployment, but not having done deployment in the past, I don't have anything to compare it to. Yeah, our first 5 were combat deployments. And I did not know what I didn't know at that time. I mean, this was at the peak of the Iraq and Afghanistan war, and so the deployments were kind of back to back and one after the other, and it's what everyone was doing and everyone was going through. So I didn't really know any differently. And now that we've experienced 2 non-combat deployments, I'm like, oh, this is like night and day. I mean, it's not even like, I hesitate to even call them deployments because it's just so different. And not to downplay like someone who hasn't been through a combat deployment. I'm not saying that when you experience a non-combat deployment that you're not allowed to be stressed. That's ridiculous. I'm just saying that every deployment is different. And I feel like sometimes that it is like, having babies, that if you're a mom, and how like moms will get together and everyone wants to share their birthing story and give their advice, and ours was 10 pounds and was born in 3 seconds, and all these crazy extremes, that you can't take that and assume that that's going to be your experience. I mean, I'm a mom of 4, and every single birth was a little bit different, and they each had their own challenges. Each was stressful in their own way. Some were better than others. And I think deployments are kind of be like that too, that yes, in some ways, all deployments are deployments. Gone is gone. And so we miss our service member no matter what part of the world they're in and no matter how often they're allowed to call. But different ones are going to have their own challenges. And so if you've only done one or you've done none before, you don't quite know what to base it on, and you don't know what you don't know. So I hear that about not watching the news. Because yeah, the news can be extremely unsettling, especially during combat deployment, especially when you don't know what to expect. There was times during some of my husband's Afghanistan deployments when I'd set up Google alerts. You know, you could set keywords for his unit or for the province in Afghanistan that he was in, and in some ways it was exciting because it was the only connection I had with him. So if there was a journalist embedded with that unit or, you know, in that area, I could feel a little bit connected to my husband. But it was also torture because every time a Google alert popped up about, you know, combat or deaths or, you know, anything, I was having a little heart attack every time. So eventually I realized I should not use the Google alerts during deployment, because it was just torturing myself. And so you learn to kind of just assume that no news is good news. And that's a really hard place to get to, but it's a fact that once you get there and you just learn that as long as you haven't heard from them, things are probably fine. And if something was really, really wrong, you would know, you would be informed. So you have to kind of just accept that and coast along with the no news is good news for as long as you can. Brianna says, this is our first deployment. It's hard, but I'm managing to get through it. Had my second little girl 3 months before he left, then started college when he left and completed it. That is incredible. Awesome, Brianna. Congratulations on finishing the pharmacy tech certification. That's a huge deal. And it can be really exciting when you accomplish things during the deployment that was something new and something big that you didn't expect to do before. So yeah, it's going to be hard. There's going to be roller coasters where some days you're like, I'm doing great. I got this. All right. Deployment's not so bad. And then it's like the immediate next day, everything breaks and everything goes wrong and people get sick and you're like, why? So we're all going to have good days and bad days during deployment. And anyone who says, you know, that it's always hard is probably exaggerating. And anyone who says that it's always easy is probably exaggerating too. The truth is really somewhere in the middle. And stress is something that's going to fluctuate. You might be really, really stressed out during a certain time of deployment. It could be the holidays, or it could be, you know, a child being born or a child acting out, or, you know, all these different things can really heighten your stress level, or taking classes. But then there's going to be times where that dissipates and it goes away and you're like, oh, okay, I didn't realize I did know what I was doing. I am doing okay. It was just that situation was really stressful and was wearing me out. And once the situation dissolved, then I realized I was okay. So deployment stress is a difficult thing to deal with. And I don't know why I haven't mentioned this before, but I do have a Facebook group specific to military deployments support. And I'm going to add it here in the comments because I am doing a Facebook challenge. Hold on a second. I gotta like think how to type and spell and not talk at the same time. Okay. That looks right. So that link on my page will take you to a deployment support group, which is a Facebook group, a free Facebook group that I'm hosting. And we're going to be using it, especially in the month of March. I'm going to have a huge week-long challenge with interviews and videos and questions and feedback. And I hope that you guys will check it out, because I just want to have it be a supportive and encouraging community where we can ask questions like this about military life situations and stress. And we can also offer resources and support. And someone can say, you know, I'm a National Guard family. What resources are there for me? Or I'm in this branch. Does that resource work for us too? So I want it to be a supportive and encouraging group. And I hope that you will check it out. So thank you guys. I always love seeing those little likes. It means somebody's listening. So I'm really excited to be here with you today, but I do need to wrap it up. So if anyone has any more questions about deployments or stressful situations and resources that you're looking for, please leave them in the comments. I always read the comments afterwards and I will respond. And I encourage you to check out the Facebook deployment support group. And then I also, thanks, we got a little bit of all the emotions going by. And then I also remind you that for this week, this upcoming week, I have I have one free VIP ticket to give away for the Military Spouse Wellness Summit. And so that the giveaway for that is in the comments, and you can enter multiple times. So I encourage you to just put in as many entries as you would like, and then I will randomly select the winner. The contest closes on Friday, so I'll be announcing the winner on Saturday. So I hope that at least one of you will be able to attend the Military Spouse Wellness Summit with the free VIP ticket. But for everyone else, you can look into the Military Spouse Wellness Summit, and I'll put a link for that in the comments as well. So thanks so much for joining me, guys. It's been really fun, and I will see you next time on the Seasoned Spouse page. Take care. Bye.